What a Labour win would mean for housing affordability. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee because I want to talk about this press release from Buyer's Buyer where they're discussing a Labour win in the federal election. Remember, it's an election year, everyone. Hasn't been officially declared, but we're preparing for it. We're starting to hear, the promises from our politicians, and the advertisements are starting to appear. So some people are, housing affordability is coming back on the radar, and some people are hoping that Labour might make a drastic change or might make a difference from the current coalition that we have. We'll have to see. So let's have a look at this, what Buyers have to say. Housing affordability in focus. A change in government at the forthcoming election will be unlikely to mean a significant improvement in housing affordability over the medium and longer term this time around, according to Peter Wargent, a co-founder of Australia's first national marketplace for buyers agents, Buyers. I'm not surprised. I don't think it'll make any difference, to be honest. We saw where Shorten was trying to win with ending negative gearing, keeping it for themselves. So all the people that have negative gearing still get that negative gearing, get that benefit, but everyone moving forward wouldn't be able to take advantage of it. That's fair and normal, isn't it? Labour are the good guys, apparently. While there are some proposals in relation to housing affordability, without a structural change to the Australian economy that will reduce the population concentration in Sydney and Melbourne, and to a lesser extent Brisbane, housing affordability is unlikely to improve materially over the medium and long term. He said the 2019 election defeat was a shock for the federal opposition, and this was clearly reflected in the decision to drop its previously promised reforms to negative gearing and capital gains tax. But housing affordability is likely to remain a key tenet of the election campaign, and measures taken to cool housing demand could make a marginal difference to affordability over time. If the coalition is returned in government, then we can most likely expect no major changes, but Labour have made some interesting proposals with regard to affordable housing, and at a later point of time could choose to target investors, which would in turn dampen housing demand. The ALP has previously recommended a suite of measures, ranging from the introduction of a tax on vacant properties and the creation of an affordable land register. And of course, there is the promise to establish a $10 billion Housing Australia Fund to build low-cost houses and affordable dwellings for frontline workers, which would deliver 20,000 social houses over the first 5 years. These policies will likely make a difference to housing affordability. No, it won't. 20,000 houses? At the margin, yeah, and in specific cases, such as for certain key workers. But generally speaking, it's the policies targeting demand which tend to have a bigger impact on affordability rather than measures taken to build new supply. As we've seen in the UK, finance cost relief for individual landlords could still be restricted. Though it's worth noting, this hasn't stopped housing prices from rising in the UK since the implementation of the legislation in 2017. Something similar could easily be looked at by the ALP in the coming years as a way of building up a budget war chest. Expect the status quo if the coalition wins. And I think a lot of people will want that. They will want the status quo. We saw Shorten try and make changes, lost in the election. I mean, what's better? What brand of government incompetence do you want? Do you want one with an extra dose of social justice or not? That's pretty much your choices, guys. Although it'd be interesting to see what would happen if we got a hung parliament. That would be good. That would be good. I'm a fan of that. Ever since the cash ban legislation and seeing all the people speaking in the House of Reps and there was no one there to listen to them, and they all just plotted in and voted like their party told them to vote. That's kind of why I want a hung parliament. Doran Peleg, co-founder and CEO of Buyers, said the incumbent government's housing policies have mainly focused on the first home loan deposit scheme to help first home buyers into the market and the home builder package. Despite much skepticism from market commentators, both policies have been remarkably successful in what they set out to do. First home buyer commitments have run as high as we've seen since the Rudd first home buyer stimulus through the financial crisis, and the next census appears fairly likely to record a surprise increase in the rate of home ownership. This is the thing. I wonder if people's political positions change once they become a homeowner. You know, you grow out of a lot of socialism once you start paying taxes, once you start a business, once you have a family. You know, maybe this is just another step. Although the home builder stimulus was also successful in keeping the construction industry operational through the worst of the pandemic, with over 229,000 dwellings approved over the year to November 2021, which is historically speaking a very high figure, and detached house construction has surged, Mr. Pellick said. And here you go. I mean, yeah, guys, this is government dumping a whole lot of product onto the market. So the medium-term challenges for affordability. Mr. Pellick of Buy Buyers said, the Australian housing market faces two major challenges. The first is the overall weakness in the creation of high-paying jobs outside Sydney and Melbourne, and to a lesser extent Brisbane. Consequently, since the end of the mining boom, population growth in those capital cities has been substantially higher than other parts of the country. While the pandemic has triggered some changes, and particularly an increased demand for lifestyle areas, these changes are not similar in scale to the shift that we had through the mining boom years, where the resource states, particularly WA, enjoyed very strong demand for housing. I mean, I was talking to a friend the other day who's worked regionally in, healthcare in the regions, and he said there's no work there. People move there, what do? They've got no work. With no large-scale innovation programs that will create hundreds of thousands of high-paying jobs in areas outside major capital cities, a population shift on a large scale is unlikely. The demand for well-located housing in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane will therefore remain high. The other issue is a chronic undersupply of family-suitable housing, particularly freestanding houses in areas with good proximity to the major employment hubs. Overall, there is a known lack of integrated planning and coordination between the federal, state and local governments to solve this puzzle. The problem is particularly noticeable in the middle ring suburbs, resulting in the missing middle and an insufficient supply of medium-density townhouse projects. This issue is also, and you've got to remember, you've got the NIMBY, the Not In My Backyard crowd as well, wanting to intervene and stop a lot of that too. The issue is also unlikely to be resolved in the near future. When we add to that Australia's migration policy that will impact the demand for properties in the major employment hubs, then the issue is here to stay. And we're going to see that, everyone. Overall, our conclusion is that over the medium and long term, it's highly unlikely that housing affordability will materially improve if there is a change of government in the 2022 federal election. Home buyers and investors will likely continue to purchase family-suitable properties in areas with good proximity to the major employment hubs, he said. So there we have it. Buyers' take on what a Labor win would do for housing affordability in the housing markets. Let's talk about this one. I think it's going to be sad for a lot of people that are hoping that there'll be a correction to the market, or that voting for Labor will have these wonderful new policies that will change everything and housing will become more affordable. I can't see it happening. They seem to make quite a decent argument here for what might happen. But yeah, guys, I think you just have to find a way to get ahead if you want to get into housing. Because once people get into housing, well, that'll change their voting preference. If they've struggled and fought to get into housing, or they've been supported by the government to get into housing, they don't want a correction. They don't want housing to become more affordable. Investors don't want housing to be affordable. They want housing to be expensive. People will vote. They'll vote for parties they're ideologically opposed to, simply to ensure housing is affordable so their investments don't take a hit. I would hope we increase supply, but the issue is we're going to have more demand on existing infrastructure. I mean, if you're immigrating to Australia, of course you're going to go to Sydney or Melbourne or even Brisbane. You're going to go to a decent city because that's where your opportunities are. Can't blame people. Check out this video about how much a carton of smokes is and the type of home loan you could get for spending it. Maybe this is just the other part of encouraging you to get out of this expensive bloody habit, guys. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.